All right, we made it to our 8th annual Slide into Spring, this year's virtual edition 2021. The International Trombone Week has seen all kinds of great content developed and available online, and we're proud to be part of it. So glad you're here, and we're in for a treat. We've got several amazing artist sessions lined up, followed by a great concert featuring friends from near and far. Before we go on, a special note of thanks to our main supporter for today's event, the Calgary Association for the Development of Music Education. Founded in 2003 and run entirely by volunteers, CADME has put over $1 million back into music education programs through outreach initiatives, workshops, clinics, and amazing concerts in and around the Calgary region. I invite you to look them up at www.cadme.ca or on Facebook, as they are continually growing the opportunities for learning and music enrichment in our community. And now on to our first session. You're welcome to type comments and questions into the chat, which I will be reading and can pass on to our guests in order to respond. We're thrilled to have our first guest tuning in all the way from Pittsburgh, or the Pittsburgh Symphony, I should say. I think he's in Cleveland right now. Principal of trombone since 1999, and having also served as solo trombone at the Montreal Symphony. Pete Sullivan is also on the faculty of Duquesne and Carnegie Mellon Universities, and among other prestigious performances, has performed Christian Lindbergh's trombone concerto in Bunol, Spain, with a composer on the podium, and has also been the clinician to our National Youth Orchestra's trombonists. The music you were just enjoying before we went live was Pete with the low brass of the Pittsburgh Symphony on their 2008 recording called From the Back Row. Pete Sullivan is a Yamaha artist, and we welcome him to chat with our very own local trombone heroes of the Calgary Philharmonic Orchestra, Jim Scott and Dave Reed. Thanks so much, guys. I'll pass the microphone over to you.
Thanks, Nathan.
Hi, everybody.
So first of all, welcome, Pete, a great old friend, former member of the Calgary Philharmonic, and as well as, Toronto, Montreal, and Pittsburgh. So real distinguished career and great trombonist and a great friend to all of us. So we're happy to have you here, Pete. And
great to be here, Jim. Great to see you guys again.
Yeah, this is great. I mean, I wish it was live, but this is our next best thing. So one thing I just to mention, the reason you're in Cleveland, I understand that you're also now on the faculty of the Cleveland Institute of Music and teaching there. And that's Pete squeezed us in today in between some lessons, so from a hotel room somewhere in Cleveland. So
right across the street from the school. So.
Anyway, thanks for doing that. And
it's my pleasure.
I'll just kind of give you free rein here, but maybe talk a little bit about your career, like how you got started on the trombone. What brought you to this?
Sure. Well, first of all, it's great to be here. Thanks everybody for having me. It's great to see you guys again. It's been since the 80s really that I've been in Calgary. It's my first gig, so it'll always be special to me. It's great to share the stage with the great Al Kay. Al's the trombone player I always wanted to be. That's no lie. That's no lie. Yeah, well, look, it's not a terribly interesting story, but I come from a small town up north in northern Ontario, right? Timmins. Some of you have heard of it. Our most famous, besides all the hockey players that came from there, our most famous Timmins person was Shania Twain. Ring a bell? You old guys? Anyway. Yeah, so I grew up in Timmins, and we took piano lessons from the nuns when we were kids. It's a pretty small town. It was a really small town back then. But a shout out to all of you small town folks out there. We didn't have much going on up there, but we made the best of it. So I studied piano with the Grey Nuns, and so did all my brothers and my sister. And I picked up the trombone in high school. Our band professor, Mr. Goodfellow, he first day in class, he just grabbed everything. He played them all, and I knew I had to play that trombone. So I just did high school like everybody else. And, by the end of it, I was like, well, what am I going to do? So I went to Ottawa U. I auditioned at Ottawa U. I got in. So I started at Ottawa U. I studied with Doug Burden, a bass trombone player with the NAC Orchestra, who's retiring next year. He just called me. And Doug was great. And that was my first trombone lesson, really, was at university. So Doug got me going. He focused on the right stuff, just keeping everything simple and legato, beautiful legato. It's all about the legato with Doug. And I think that's what's helped me a lot. And then, everybody was talking about Ted Griffith down in Montreal. And so I went and checked it out. And, I don't know if you all know who Ted Griffith was, but he was sort of I think at the time he was sort of our Remington, He was the guy that everybody of my generation wanted to go see. He was great. So I spent a few years at McGill. And then I auditioned for the Calgary Phil, and there we were, me and Jim together with Mark Johnson and Mike Eastep, and those were great years, man. Those were great years. It's 2.5 years, but back then, those 2.5 years seems like 10 years to me. It's like high school is only 4 years, but it seems like forever. Those formative years, they're so embedded in you, and so many things change in your life during those years. And then, but I'm from out east. I wanted to get back home. I'm a homeboy. I get homesick. I still go up to Timmins 5 times a year. Well, at least until COVID, So I ended up in the Toronto Symphony for a year. I got to sit beside the great Gordon Sweeney, which might have been the best education I ever had. Just sitting beside him. They had a 4-man section there. I was the utility player, but Frank Harmontes is a great trombone player. He was sick most of that year, so I got to sit beside Gord all the time. And like I said, that was the best teaching experience. That's the best learning experience I ever had. And then I ended up at the Montreal Symphony. I played second trombone there for 4 seasons. And then in my 4th season, I started playing a little first, and then I ended up 10 years as principal. And then in 99, I moved to the States, and I've been here for 21 years.
The time it flies.
I'll be home soon.
The whole time thing, it's like you said, like those high school years or college years seem to go by so slow, and I can't believe this is year 40 for me here. So
Oof.
The last 20 years.
But I was old.
Yeah, because this is like the same thing again, over and over again.
I know, that's the way it is.
I'm
going to pick up on what you were talking about there a little bit, and playing with all those different orchestras. Can you just maybe talk a little bit about you know, the sort of the playing styles in those different orchestras and things you picked up there, or the way you're playing may have changed from that? Like obviously sitting next to someone like a Gordon Sweeney, I mean, that he's just famous for that sound, that beautiful sound. But you know, whatever.
You know, I think that like when you audition for an orchestra, you're showing them what you have and what your sound is. And if they hire you, it's because, you know, they like that sound, or they want that sound to be part of what they're doing. And I don't think you're going to hire someone into your section that you know is not going to, you know, who's a total different school of playing or anything like that. So I never gave that much thought, really. I just played, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, once you're there, then you make the adjustments. And even if, you know, you might not be aware of all the adjustments you're making, but I think the biggest, I mean, I didn't even think of it going from Calgary to Toronto to Montreal. It was all, you know, everybody was a good player. One thing I'm so lucky about, I've always played with great sections. I'm so lucky. You know, every section I've played in has been great. You know, whether I was in the section or leading the section. I mean, I just lucked out. Got not only good players, but great people, you know? And so, like, you know, leading a section of great players and great people, it's a piece of cake, you know? But in terms of your sound, you know, I don't remember, you know, making any big adjustments, certainly not equipment adjustments. I've barely changed my setup since, you know, being at Ottawa U. You know, I still play a kind of a small-ish mouthpiece. I don't have your typical, you see, Pittsburgh section was a very bright section, you know, with George Vosberg and Bill Caballero and those guys. I mean, that's like an all-American, bright, aggressive, not pejoratively, but you know what I mean.
Oh yeah.
And so I'm more of a brighter player, so it worked out. It worked out, and I didn't have to make any changes. I mean, I remember Joe Leslie looking at my mouthpiece. He looks at it, says, "This is a trumpet mouthpiece."
Yeah, well,
I play like fives, you know, and everybody plays like threes and fours, but I just play a five, you know. And for my job, you know, I got to be able to project, you know, without killing myself, you know. So I need a bright, clear sound, and if it's in tune and it's in the right spot, it's going to get out there, you know.
You find things changed, like just like note lengths,
yeah, a little bit.
Maybe bell tone kind of playing or that sort of thing.
Maybe a bit. I'm not sure how conscious I am of it. I probably just reacted and went with it, you know. I think if you're going to be successful as a section player, whether it's a big band or an orchestra or whatever, you got to be able to react like that, you know. So if people are playing bell tones a little differently in Pittsburgh, well, you just kind of go with it. You do it, you know. I mean, as principal trombone, of course, you're leading your section, but more often than not, you're an inner voice in a larger section, you know. So I like to think that I got to Pittsburgh and I added a certain something. I'm not exactly sure what it is, but I'm sure I brought something from Montreal. You know, and so the section, I think when a principal trombone comes in, the section will change somewhat.
Sure.
Not like a principal trumpet coming in. I mean, that can be like a wholesale change to the sound of your section.
Oh yeah, like principal trumpet. I totally agree. Like I always find that you got to keep your principal trumpet happy. You gotta.
Good luck with that.
But you got to try and follow. You got to try and follow their lead and make sure that you're your team player. You're not.
Yeah, a lot. You look. I mean, the one thing I will say that the Pittsburgh is a German, sort of traditionally German orchestra. You know, with Reiner and the Mazel and so yeah, it was a heavier sound, and yeah, maybe a little more tenuto to all the notes and all of that.
Yeah,
But you know, yeah, it was different for sure. It was different. I had to work a little harder. Let's just put it that way. I just had to work a little harder. Lengths of notes, I suppose, but you know,
I heard an interesting thing, a similar discussion like this with the New York Phil, where Jim Markey was talking about in Boston, just the difference of the hall being very live, very, whereas the New York hall was very dead. So New York was
that has a lot to do with the sound.
And then in Boston they tend to back off more because you would never hear anything else after the brass attack.
Like Cleveland too. It's the same deal here.
Yeah,
two of the best halls in the country. Severance Hall here is unbelievable, but you can hear a pin drop, so you can't be. You know, these guys, their sound is a little more contained because they have no choice. It's the hall. It's like Musikverein in Vienna. You know, the hall to a certain degree dictates the culture of sound of the orchestra. You know, especially if you're in that hall for a long time and you have generations of players.
I'm going to turn it over to Dave, but before I do, the sad thing for you is you left just before the move into the new hall here, because that was a big change for us.
I played a concert there. Don't you remember the Hard Hat concert?
Yeah, that's right. I do remember that. I mean, it was still bare concrete. It wasn't exactly like you could. But before the hall was done and before it really became home,
it was just a party. It was just a big party. I remember our last set. I think we played 3 sets, and our last set, I mean, right across the brass section, there were empty plastic beer cups strewed all over.
Yeah, that happened. But
I'm not supposed to tell those kind of stories.
Yeah, but Dave, why don't you ask a question here?
Well, just to comment on that, I heard about that legendary Hard Hat concert and how that was an amazing experience for seeing this big empty space that was to become the Jack Singer. And it probably happened some months before you won the Toronto Symphony audition. So at the time, you probably anticipated moving into that hall. When I was in the Ceremonial Guard back in Ottawa, and for those who don't know, it's a marching band summer gig. I also took some lessons with Doug Burton, and one of the legendary people about town that people still talk about was, of course, our good friend Pete Sullivan, and. Having heard about his move to Calgary, I sort of, from a distance was following what you were up to. And it was just so interesting that when the Toronto Symphony audition came up, I was very interested in that. Young student sent in a tape, didn't make the cut. But when I got back to U of T, my teacher was Gordon Sweeney, who is this wonderful musician you got to work with for a year in Toronto. And he said, the guy who won this job is leaving Calgary. I said, Pete Sullivan. He said, yeah, you should go after that job. So I kind of thank you for making the opening for my career.
My pleasure, Dave. My pleasure.
one of the legendary players that I got to hear when I was in the Ceremonial Guard, I went to see the National Youth Orchestra, and they performed on Heldenleben. And playing bass trombone was this young, monstrously good player named Murray Crew. So I just wanted to ask if you had an opportunity to work with him prior to your arrival in Pittsburgh, and whether you already had a friendship established, and then what that was like becoming the second Canadian in a major symphonic low brass section.
Yeah, well, when I was in Montreal, he was in Quebec City. And then he moved to the Utah Symphony, and then he moved to the Toronto Symphony. And when he was in Toronto, we communicated, and we did some concerts together. We did a couple of recitals together, and so we got to know each other. We're kindred spirits. We're good. We were good friends. Sadly, we lost him 4 years ago.
Yeah,
much too young.
Big loss.
But
low brass world.
Yeah, big loss. Great player, great guy, great friend. And so he was in Pittsburgh, and he bugged me a bit to come and audition, So I think he was partly, and then I don't know if you know Rian Kenny from Calgary, actually, our piccolo player in the Pittsburgh Symphony. She's from Calgary.
Okay.
Oh, and she was, Rian. I played. I don't know if you remember this, Jim, but at one point, the Calgary Youth Symphony, their first trombone player got sick at the last minute, and so I went and subbed with the Calgary Youth Symphony, and Rian Kenny was the first flute in the
Oh, that's fun.
in the Calgary Youth Orchestra.
We've
Which she reminded me that when I sorry, but she bugged me to come and audition too. I didn't, there were a lot of Canadians. There still are a lot of Canadians in the Pittsburgh Symphony. Ton. There's a dozen of us, I'll bet, or at least there was. Actually, 2 of them died. One of the violinists and Murray. So anyway, but yeah, he was. I can't say enough about Murray. I mean, he had one of the great bass trombone sounds ever.
Truly,
the Calgary Philharmonic. Sorry, Dave. Calgary Philharmonic trombone players playing with the youth orchestra. That's still a tradition. There have been old balding guys sitting in the back of the youth orchestra, filling in the trombone, and even in recent years, trying to look young.
Yeah. Good times.
There have been a number of really successful, great international musicians that have come from Calgary and certainly come from Canada. Have you ever had a chance to meet Dan West? He's a trombonist who plays in London, grew up in Calgary. I'm sure Jim would recall him, but he's
plays in a group called Septura, a 7-piece brass group that's really great. Check them out. They've got some YouTube stuff that's worth hearing. And
there's a violinist, fantastic violinist, Laura Muchlov from Calgary. She's in the PSO as well. She's amazing.
Oh, fantastic!
There's a big string program here, and that helps.
Yeah.
We have a question from the chat, and I'm just gonna. It was why is a strong focus on legato early on important? And we all 3 of us have at least a little bit of second generation removed Remington in our DNA and our teaching and whatever, the teaching that we received. And I don't know, maybe talk about that a little bit, Pete. Why do you think it's such...
Well, we're singers, we have to sing. That's the first thing I tell myself when I pick up the horn. I make sure, before you put that thing to your face, you're a singer. You got to sing through that thing. And that was the Remington, we're not, at least most of us aren't paid to play Blue Bells of Scotland. You're not going to make a living playing Blue Bells of Scotland. We're paid to play beautiful chorales. And tell you the hard part, the real, what's bolero? Bolero is just a nice legato, high register etude, Yeah. We get paid to play nice lines, to sing nice lines. Playing loud, that's the easy part.
Yeah.
Anybody can play loud. But to play soft and smooth and legato, that's where you make your money, ladies and gentlemen. After all these years, it's like, I got to be able to play the high notes, and I got to be able to play the soft chorales. And I mean soft, And you guys, anybody who's been playing in an orchestra for long enough, they know that. Anybody can play loud. Yeah.
There's an old line that nobody ever got fired for not being able to play loud enough, but it's not being able to play soft enough.
Yeah.
That.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And
but there was one more thing I wanted to say about the switch to the orchestra, and I did do a change of equipment. I switched from my Bach to my Yamaha. But it wasn't because I was trying to change my sound or anything like that. It was more because my horn was falling apart and Yamaha got with me. And the deal was, make me sound the way I sound. I don't want to change the way I sound. So build me something that is going to do that, And so after a couple of years working with them, we got this horn, and I was going back and forth between my Bach, which was a great instrument, but it was falling apart. And there was, so I did do that one little change, but I'm basically on the same mouthpiece.
That's good, because that was actually a question I was going to get to a little bit about your Yamaha thing. But yeah.
Oh, they've been great. They've been great. Yeah, good bunch of guys. Good bunch of folks.
That's great.
I have a relative. Anyway, we won't talk about that. Okay. Go ahead.
maybe this is a good one. Can you name some career highlights and maybe some favorite halls, favorite conductors, things like that over the years?
Well, like I said, I think my highlights are the people that I played with, like Murray and, my principal horn, Bill Caballero, all the guys in Montreal, John Zerbel and Jim Thompson. That I think is probably the highlight for me. Just from Timmins, sometimes I have to pinch myself. I'm playing with these guys that are just unbelievable, And at the same time, it's kind of, these guys, they'll go 6 months without missing a note, And so, but I don't know. We've played Carnegie so many times. I had to play the Bolero a lot in a lot of places like Carnegie Hall and live on TV a couple of times. And that's been, I won't miss playing that thing. I've had to play that so many times, but I played in some beautiful halls. We played a lot in the Musikverein Saal in Vienna. We've done a couple of residencies there. Last time we were there, we played 5 concerts there. We recorded Mahler's Second there. We played the Mozart Requiem there. We played, I know you guys have played too. And some of the great halls, Suntory Hall in Tokyo. We played the new halls in China. We played every hall you can imagine in Germany. We've been there so many times. And the new hall in Paris, the new hall in Hamburg, Prince Albert Hall, the Proms. I was lucky. I hit the sweet spot with the touring orchestras, because there were just so many tours. So those are highlights. And conductors, I played with some really great conductors. Maris Janssens was, he passed away last year, sadly, but he's just magical to work with some of these guys. My conductor now is great too, Honig, and my years with Dutoit in Montreal were amazing. Got to play with Frubeck de Burgos a lot. He died too. All these guys are dying. I guess that's kind of it. The halls, but as I say, mostly the colleagues that I played with. And I've been lucky to do summer festivals with some of the greats,
I'd echo that too. It's the colleagues. I mean, Dave here, for instance, is a great colleague to work with. You were a great colleague to work with. But also some of the same halls. I mean, we only, of course, got to do that one European tour with Calgary, but we played the Musikverein and Tonhall in Zurich.
Zurich, the Tone Hall, that's fantastic.
Yeah, Geneva was pretty good hall too. And
Victoria Hall, yeah.
And then another tour we did Carnegie and we did Symphony Hall in Boston, and those are both.
Oh yeah, great halls.
Great places. And
yeah.
Maybe same thing to you, Dave. If you got anything like that.
Yeah, just changing the subject a little bit. We've talked a lot about our dear departed friends here. Back in my early years in Calgary, I was very good friends with your late cousin, Mark McGregor. And he was
I was his teacher.
Jim taught Mark at U of C, and he was a wonderful presence, musically in this city. In fact, he was also a virtuoso accordion player, as you might recall.
I do. I grew up with the guy.
Played with the Calgary Philharmonic, came in with his backwards baseball cap and torn T-shirt, and Mario Bernardi was absolutely expecting the worst. Do you remember that, Jim? And it was an Art Murray Schaefer piece, Letters from Mozart, and a very difficult accordion part, and Mark just nailed it with great musicality and ability to follow it. It was anyway. Mark talked. He was a fine jazz and commercial trombone player who I got to work with quite a bit in various settings. And he talked a lot about your approach to practicing, because you guys were cousins. You grew up in Timmins together, right? He talked about your approach.
He was from the suburbs of Timmins, okay? Schumacher, which is the suburbs of Timmins. Okay, let's get that straight.
Bedroom community.
He talked a lot about just having your horn nearby all the time and picking it up and just doing flexibilities on a regular basis. Even if you're watching a game, just play some flexibility studies and scales and things over the game. Do you want to talk a little bit about your philosophy about that, about maintaining your skills on just in the real world of day-to-day life?
Yeah, well, I mean, you kind of said it all there. I mean, the more time on your face, good quality time though, because you don't want to be overdoing it either, especially at my age. Once once you're a certain age, you got to be careful. I was injured really badly in 2014. I thought I was done. I could hardly play anymore. But I think just regular, relaxed practicing. Oh God, I could go on all day about this, but just time on the horn, time on the horn. You have to be ready. For all you youngins out there, unless you're ready to put that thing in your face for long, long, long periods of time. The whole 10,000 hour thing. Just to build a strong setup. And to get so that your airstream is like an extension of you. The connection that you have to your airstream. It has to be organic, and it just has to be like your left arm or something. Let's think about it.
A real extension.
And that needs a reconnection every morning. I have to reconnect with all of that. But it's all got to be done in a relaxed fashion, and you got to get your air going before you start your day, or else, it'll just be too hard on your chops. And, I like, I play more and more middle to low register stuff, and my high notes end up twice as strong, a lot of lip slurs. Yeah. And a lot of just, I don't know. I mean, it's not complicated. It's just a lot of quality time. And, I haven't missed a Penguins game. I missed one game. I thought I was recording it, but it didn't work. But otherwise, I have not missed one Penguins game all year. But there hasn't been a Penguins game where I've actually sat and watched it, because I'm always, and you guys know that. I'm sure Al does that all the time with his well, I won't say his pathetic Leafs. But you guys in Calgary there, you got nothing to brag about either these days. Although you just beat Montreal a couple of games straight, so you're looking good right now, maybe. But and golf is a great sport to watch while you're practicing, because there's not a hell of a lot going on, So golf and baseball games. No, I've always got the horn around. You pick it up and you just play.
I like too what you said about relaxed, because I always think sometimes when we emphasize like taking a big breath to students, we forget that word relax, a big relaxed breath, and that makes the whole difference, because sometimes when they take a big breath, they're so tense that they're not actually getting the benefit of that big breath. And
another thing that's important is listening, and everybody's heard this a million times. But I think when I was younger, I didn't practice as much as I should have. But once I left Timmins, I listened just constantly. I was always listening. And I think back then we had very specific things we had access to. Now it's like it's almost too much out there, Like l'embarras du choix, it's the embarrassment of riches,
Right.
So I think maybe some of the younger guys, there's too much. You can't really focus. Like I used to just listen. If you want a great legato, just listen to Herbie Green. I know a lot of it is dated music, but just listen to Herbie Green.
Yeah.
And just listen to the result, and then pick up your horn and have that result in your ear. And your body should figure out a way of making it happen, but you have to listen. You have to absorb. Everybody imitates. You shouldn't be copying, but you should be imitating all the time. Sorry, I interrupted.
We're getting towards a time to wrap it up, but when you mentioned Herbie, it just reminds me of a great story I heard. I'll condense, but this Russian immigrant jazz trombonist in New York got asked by the conductor to sound like Herbie Green. He said, "If I could sound like Herbie Green, you think I'd be working here?" It's like one of my favorite lines ever. Pretty much describes all the rest of us. There's Herbie and all the rest of us trying to get.
Yeah. The classical guys, even if they don't understand the language of jazz, they can still get a lot from the performers and the way that they phrase and the way that they sound.
Absolutely. I think too, singers. I think while there's a lot to learn from opera singers, there's so much you can get listening to more like pop and jazz kind of singers. I mean, as far as how it approaches the phrasing, playing the trombone.
Absolutely. So,
Anyway, I think we're reaching the end of our session here.
That was fun.
1 minute left. If I could just ask one more question.
Yeah.
Both Jim and I
Sure.
have sent former students of ours to go and work with you in Pittsburgh, and you've established a wonderful, well-deserved reputation as a teacher over all these decades in the business. Do you foresee continuing teaching for many years beyond your orchestral career? Because a lot of players continue to teach well into their old age, and some guys have this attitude like once they hang up their symphony hat, like that's it, they're done, they're off golfing. Do you have any
I have no
thoughts
idea.
on that?
I mean, as I said, I got to put 3 kids through school. So right now I'm not thinking about that at all. And I don't teach at Duquesne. I teach at Carnegie Mellon and I teach at Cleveland Institute. And it seems like I've always got a Canadian student because I'm at the NYO every summer as well. So I keep in touch. I do the NYO auditions with Gord and Pia. And so I keep in touch, with what's going on up there as much as I can, I sure miss it up there. I'll tell you that much. I sure miss it.
Well, we hope to have you up for a ski trip again sometime before too long.
Yeah. We'll do something like this live at some point for sure, and
That's great.
we'll have a big excuse for a party, really. But anyway, until
Good.
then, I think we have to hand it over, and Karsten and Al are going to have a nice little chat now here. But thanks so much for making time. I know you're in the middle of teaching today, and that was really
That's fine. I don't teach till 7, so
okay.
I'm good. I'm good.
All
All right, thanks, guys. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you for having me. Really, really, really great to see you too, Al. Up
Thanks
there.
to Nathan, by the way. This is my
Thanks,
last
guys.
chance to speak. So thanks to Nathan for putting this all together.
For all you do for this.
Yeah.
All right, take it away, Al.
All right. What a great session, man. There was so much gold in that. Big thank you to Pete Sullivan, Jim Scott, Dave Reed. We're just so appreciative of that. Every year, as part of the afternoon, we have a few door prizes. So we've got the names and participants from the Calgary region who sent in recordings for the virtual trombone ensemble, and they will be picked from a hat. I hope you can see my hat here. And the first, there's gonna be 2 draws now, and we'll have 2 after we hear from our next interview. And let me just pick here. I'll try to be as fair as possible. All right. So this is for an Arbon's book, courtesy of Long and McQuaid. So thank you very much to Long and McQuaid. And Amanda Shaw has won that. Awesome. That is brilliant. So we'll try and get a hold of you, or you get a hold of us at slideintоспringyyc@gmail.com, and we will figure out a way to get that contactless pickup or delivery of your prize. So there you go. And we've got another prize from Long and McQuaid, a digital metronome. So let's see who's going to get that one here. See, sorry, my virtual background here. That's hilarious. I've just picked Jim's name. So Jim, we've got a metronome for you. That's awesome. All right. So I'm glad that I can at least be in touch with both of these people. Let's go ahead, head on to the next one. The next session features one of Canada's legends, a jazz trombone. He hails from Toronto and has played with Rob McConnell's Boss Brass, the True North Brass, and a who's who of Canadian music, as well as amazing touring shows, and also recently retired from the head of brass faculty at the Humber College. Alistair Kay is not only an amazing soloist, but a consummate professional. He travels regularly to Calgary area and to do brass and jazz workshops, concerts with the Primetime Big Band, and part of the Yamaha Order of Canada Big Band to perform and teach at the Banff Centre and adjudicate at local music festivals. We're absolutely delighted to have him here with us in conversation with Calgary's own Carsten Rubeling, dear friend and trombonist, the Foothills Brass, and the leader of the Jazz Fusion Ensemble, Volk. Welcome to both of you. Thanks so much for being here.
Hey, thanks, Nathan.
Absolutely.
Hi, Al.
Hey.
How are you?
Good.
Yeah?
Yeah, wish I was there. Wish I was there in the snow.
I bet you do. I bet you do.
Yeah.
Hey, where did they stick you there? It looks like you've got some canoe paddles behind you there.
I built a basement on my cottage where I live full time now, so we had to do something. So we got a washer and dryer and computer set up, and I practice down here. I can watch TV and practice, and
Excellent.
so it's a nice space. Yeah.
Excellent. And is the water open out there where you are yet, or?
Oh yeah, the ice went out about a month ago or so.
Okay. Well, and I wish I was over there. Put a paddle in the water there.
Yeah.
Thanks so much for being willing to speak with me. Well, just period, after.
Well, I miss you, Carsten, because you were in Toronto for many years, and we have lots of good playing together, and I only get to see you occasionally now. So
I know. Well, I miss you too, and I think so fondly of my time out there and studying with you for the 4 years that I was at Humber, and then we don't see each other often enough, but hopefully we can do some more here pretty soon. I know you were out here the year before last, but
yeah, I've been played in Calgary quite a bit over the years, and I even played with the Calgary Philharmonic, but it wasn't. I was playing some Tommy Dorsey solos out front, and but I know all the guys in the sections. They're all great players, and yeah.
That's right. I remember seeing a picture of you and Jim and Dave and Mike there. That's great. Well, why don't we jump right into it, because I know there's a lot of stuff that I would love to talk with you about, and we don't have a ton of time. And just after Pete's chat with Jim and Dave, I think there's so many great things that they discussed, a lot of jumping off points for us. But I thought maybe you could also start just sharing with everyone and us what your start in music was, how you found how you got a trombone in your hands, was your family musical, that kind of thing. So.
Well, I grew up in Scotland, and I think if I was still living in Scotland, I wouldn't be a musician, because we didn't have the same music programs. I might have been playing in a brass band, maybe, you know, if our school in Scotland had that. But when I first came in 1966, I was 10 years old to Canada. And then I think a year or two later, I was in junior high. And it was basically the teacher we had a really great teacher, was a valve trombone player. And the first class, I remember he passed around a clarinet mouthpiece with a reed and a trumpet mouthpiece, and whatever you sounded best on, you're either brass or woodwind. Like,
That's
I guess we all got the flu as well, but I don't know. But but that's how we started, and so grade 7, starting trombone, and you know what? From the 3rd or 4th month of playing trombone, I picked it up very quickly. I practiced all the time, and I knew this is what I want to do the rest of my life, and I just knew at that point because it was so much fun. And meanwhile, my grades in grade 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 were all 50s in math, 50s in geography, 50s and everything else, 96s in music. You know, that's a typical musician thing. You know,
you knew pretty early exactly what you wanted to be doing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I know you started young and were very proficient as a young trombone player. I mean, I think you were starting to work also pretty early as well in Toronto, right?
Yeah, I mean, when I went, even during high school and actually junior high, we started a big band because, no, sorry, when we went to high school, because our teacher in high school was not interested in jazz. So a bunch of us started a big band, and we were actually a great all-star band from schools around the area, and we did radio shows, and we played the exhibition. And
Yeah.
Pete Coleman, great trombone player and writer, composer, and arranger, he was in the band. And so we had a fantastic band. And then when we went to Humber College, and most of us from that band went to Humber College, this is the second year of the program. I think within maybe the second year, I started, my teacher, Don Johnson, who was a great brass teacher, and he hired me because he was doing a show. He was doing the Beverly Hills Hook and Ladder Club, which was a show that would bring in like Carmen McRae and all these great stars for the week. So I got to work with all these great players. And, you know, I remember my first gig with Mel Torme. You know, Mel Torme came in and he saw the section. It was me, Pete, and Ernie Patterson, great bass trombone player, all from Humber. And he complained to Don Johnson, I thought you were going to get me professional players, you know, and we were like 18 years old, 19 years old. And Don says, wait till you hear them.
Wow. Pretty
You know,
fresh face though, to be sitting back there in the second.
Yeah. So, and then I started doing lots and lots of evening gigs and, 6 nights a week and
Wow.
stuff during the day and Humber during the day. But I started teaching a Humber too in my 3rd year. I was teaching private lessons.
That's right.
Yeah.
Al, I was gonna just ask because I had written this down. I know that you studied with Don, and that Don was kind of a legendary brass teacher in the Toronto area. And I was wondering, what are the core things that you guys worked on together, and maybe if there was some stuff from those years that have stuck with you over the years, because I know he was a great teacher.
Yeah, I think the discipline of practicing, which I never really had, because instead of like he would always say, well, do your long tones, long tones, long tones, and then I would rather play a Nerby Green type ballad, so that was my long tones is to play music. So there was many musicians I think that are caught up in all the usual long tones, flexibilities, tonguing, and they can't necessarily play music,
Right.
So, but Don was actually very, very good because he can, if he saw something wrong, he could fix things, and that was really great.
Kind of
I
a
went through an embouchure change at Humber when I was there, and took me about 6 months, I think, to get it together. And I still had to go out and play gigs, so it was pretty tough. But I got it together, and I'm happy with the result. And but Don was great that way, and he was, he wasn't just our teacher. He was our, was a great friend to all these great brass players that went through Humber, and
yeah.
So, yeah.
That's great. And then you started teaching there in 3rd year, and and continue teaching there throughout, right after where you graduated as well, right? Or did you
Yeah,
go
there
up
was
after that?
there was part-time trombone, and I was doing maybe an ensemble or something too, but part-time for many years. And then I was also teaching at York University and also later on at Western University, down in London, a couple of days a week, leading the big band and stuff. But there was a full-time position. Don Johnson was retiring, and I went after his gig and won the gig, and so I started full-time. And but I've always enjoyed, like, I've been super busy doing like musicals and in the pits and studio work during the day. I mean, back in the 80s, I was doing sometimes 2 or 3 or 4 sessions a day, moving from studio to studio,
Wow.
and then trying to do my Humber stuff and doing a gig at night. And
That's a
busy
lot to
times.
juggle. Yeah.
It was busy times, but I made everything happen. And you get to be known by all these players, and then get in demand. And so I think very, very early age, I think I had a pretty mature sound. I like to have that Tommy Dorsey. I could do that style very well. I could play like Irby. I could play in time. I could play in tune. I had a great range. These are the important
Yes.
things to establish yourself, I think.
But I like hearing that kind of idea as well. And I remember this from our lessons many times, taking a part of the fundamentals of playing and making sure that you're having a musical application for that and putting it to a piece or a melody right away, and
Yeah.
making sure that you're not just isolating those fundamentals from the actual musical material. And
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
you always,
And like what Pete was saying about listening. I mean, that's,
yeah,
I think almost like some people are afraid to listen to great players because they sort of relate themselves to those great players, and they feel bad about themselves, rather than being totally inspired. I mean, I listen to not just only jazz players, but I listen to Christian Lindbergh and Alain Trudel, who is a
right.
great player, and he's fun. He's a great jazz player too. We've done a bunch of stuff together,
And
and
dance
but
there. Yeah.
yeah, but listening to great players, it makes all the difference, because it's got to be up here, before you even pick up your horn.
Yes, yeah, I remember that was a big thing too, kind of developing a key part of developing your sound concept is listening to all the great players, and
Yeah, yeah,
that's something that I've certainly passed on. Is almost, to be a musician, you have to be a listener first and foremost. And
yeah.
so I know we talked about Irby Green, and I just thought maybe I'd also ask, in your formative years, who else would you have had as kind of your major influences?
Well, in Toronto at the time, there was Rob McConnell on valve trombone, and I had, we always listened to the original Boss Brass recordings before they had saxophones, even.
That's right.
And it was a brass group with a rhythm section, and so Rob was, a great influence. Teddy Rotterman was a great. He was like an Irby Green of Toronto, of Canada.
Right.
Beautiful sound, beautiful, crystal clear range, and I always looked up to that. And then when Ian McDougall came to Toronto, I think I started studying with him in the third year at Humber. He started teaching there, and he was a big influence too, because he had that beautiful legato sound and great sound all around the horn. And so there's the three sort of Canadian musicians that I really respected and listened to a lot. And then, of course, Irby Green, but also guys like Frank Roslino and Carl Fontana and J.J. Johnson, Bill Watrous, all the, but there's lots and lots more. But I've always enjoyed that the guys that can play tunes, really well with emotion and, make you want to weep sometimes. They're so good.
Well, you've made me want to weep many times, and
I
not
was tough.
only
I
in
know I was tough on you. I was too tough on you.
No, it was great. I remember starting my lessons with you, and you would show me the examples of that style of playing, the Irby and Tommy Dorsey, the legato stuff, and I really found that extremely difficult for quite a long time to really get there. And the listening, though, as Pete mentioned too, it's such a big part of it. Like, let your ears guide you and your body kind of follows along.
Yeah.
But no, well, that's great. I know Irby. I'll have to find if there's a digital copy of this record. For everyone listening, we were talking about this album, All About Irby Green, which I found a couple months ago, and it's from like 1956, and it's just brilliant. So
I only got to hear him live a few times. He came to Toronto to play at the Limelight Jazz Club, I think, at the Royal York Hotel, and he wasn't playing too many ballads. He was mostly doing standards and stuff, and he could get around the horn. He's a really great jazz player too. But he's a very quiet guy. He's not a over the top type of personality. So you said hello to him, and it's hard to keep a conversation. But he's definitely a hero for so many players.
Yeah. Well, listening to this again, I can, hard to top that. But
yeah.
Okay. Well, you've had a career, Al, that has spanned so many areas and has included playing with luminaries such as, I know you played with Ella, Buddy Rich, you played with Frank Sinatra, Dizzy, Tony Bennett. We have limited time here, but I'm wondering if you could maybe talk about going from growing up listening to the Boss Brass to being in that band and to kind of sitting in that band for 15 years. About you played with Boss Brass, right?
Well, at least.
Yeah, right. And then further on from there, but maybe you can talk a bit about that.
Well, the thing is, when you're sitting in, it doesn't matter if it's a classical situation or a jazz situation, when you're sitting in a band or orchestra surrounded by fantastic players, it's almost hard to sound bad, because they draw the music out of you, and you're already a pretty good player, but as soon as you hear that sound around you, you produce,
Just adjust.
And that's one thing about, I was already doing sessions with most of the guys in the Boss Brass before I joined.
Right.
So we did recordings with Sam Anestico, and he came to Toronto. It's mostly Boss Brass guys and lots of other recordings. So I knew everyone in the band. So when I first started playing in it, it was just like I felt comfortable, and then Rob, I played first trombone for all those years, and after Ian left, and Rob started writing some solos for me and melodic type solos, and
Right.
It was
And
great, fantastic.
Who was in the section with you for the bulk? I mean, some people came and went, but when you arrived,
it was me, and then Bob Livingston,
right?
Who's still playing up in north of Toronto, and then there was Jerry Johnson, great trombone player on third.
Jerry,
he passed away unfortunately, but he was a fantastic player that played with Maynard's band for many years. Right. And he did that arrangement, I think La Fiesta or something, or I can't remember with one of the recordings, but he toured with them for many years. And then Ernie Patterson on bass trombone, and Ernie was a fantastic bass trombone player, one of the best in Canada for sure.
Yeah.
But that was a great trombone section, and of course, sitting behind us, you had Guido and Arnie, and all these fantastic players, blaring in your ears, and it was great.
Yeah. Time. Wow. And those recordings are fantastic. You also did so much theater work. I remember it would have been 2002. Actually, it's interesting you mentioned Jerry, because that reminds me of the first time I came to Toronto. I was auditioning, out at Humber, and you invited me to sit down in the pit of the Lion King. At that point, you were playing Lion King with Jerry.
Yeah. And
I think I remember something about him starting the second act with his shirt off or something like that down there. pretty brilliant guy. But I know you did so much of that type of work too. Do you want to maybe talk a little bit about all the pit orchestra stuff that you kept busy with?
Well, I was lucky enough to play in maybe at least 100 musicals, over the years, and mostly were great players in the pit. There's less pressure because you're in the pit. You still have to produce and have a great sound and do everything really well. And but surrounding you were great players. uh, and it was fun. It was good money. I mean, you made a lot more money than, I remember doing playing at some clubs 6 nights a week, and you make $350 or $400, right? Now
Yeah.
you started doing a musical, and now you're making like 1,100, 1,200, 1,600 near the end there,
Yeah.
and that's pretty good. And especially Lion King, 2 years I did, Crazy for You for 2 years. I did a bunch of long running shows that paid the mortgage.
Right. Right. And then, and at a certain point on those long running shows, I remember you could sub out when you needed to, more or less, and kind of keep everything going, the teaching, you were also doing all the CBC and all the recording studio stuff at that
Yeah, but
too.
also, I've always been interested in pushing myself. So, I mean, True North Brass, when we first started that, I mean, there was four other fantastic players in that, and we started writing stuff for ourselves. We didn't play really any published material. We did all our own stuff, but that was fantastic because it means I could write stuff for myself that not many other people could play. But
Yeah.
that
Nor
was
should anyone
great,
try.
and you have to do that type of stuff to keep yourself. Instead of sitting in a pit doing Lion King every night and not really progressing as a player, you need to have some stuff that really sort of pushes you and makes it more interesting.
Right. And True North, so True North would have been one of those kind of passion projects that kept you really on your toes as well. Hey.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the hardest thing I've ever recorded, besides Chardash, remember,
Oh
a
yeah.
lot of people might have heard Chardash, and there's lots of double A's I put in. I mean, not too many other people do that, but uh, and I also did something, when you record something like this, you're doomed to have to play it all the time. So,
Right.
you might have one high double A in you, but no, you can't. You've got to have them all the time for every concert. So, but the hardest thing I think I've ever recorded, and hopefully some of you out there can look for it, is True North Brass, where I do Air Very,
Oh yeah.
and I augmented all the cadenzas and everything, and it ended off on a double high B flat, and so it was, and I think I only did what 2 or 3 takes of that at the recording,
Yeah. How many
and
more would you want
yeah,
to do? Hey?
well, but that's the hardest thing. If you asked me to play that now, you'd have to give me a few days, at least.
I mean, I've seen you play over the years so many incredible things, whether it was with um, I know John McLeod, the Rex Big Band. I saw you
Yeah,
play so many great things with them, and then with True North. And there
and
are
also,
there are few people who can even make the attempt, Al, to get close to that.
well, it's like athletes. I think if you're a tennis star, you don't practice tennis 12 hours a day. You might go on your bike, you jog, you do other things other than tennis. And it's the same thing for musicians. If you just play one style of music your whole life, you're really not going to be ready for very much else. And I think as a musician nowadays, and I think a lot of even classical musicians nowadays, I mean, do you actually have any at the auditions? You don't have to have any changes in front of you to to try to play some jazz. But you know what? That's one of the realities of being a classical musician nowadays, is you have to do the pop concerts, and you have to sound like you sort of know what you're doing and have the right style. But I think it's great to have everything together, and it doesn't matter if you're playing or jazz or classical or everything in between. I've done raga gigs, I played in India, stuff like that, and it's all great stuff. And it's
Yeah. Well,
I think it's
I
great.
know that was one of the biggest lessons that you taught me outside of just playing the trombone, but the attitude of diversifying your skill set, making sure that you can hang on a gig that is any style of music, and making sure that and have a way of getting through any gig.
Yeah,
And I mean, man, that has served me so well in my own playing career, just trying to get stylistically diverse. And I don't know if it was you that mentioned this, but kind of that you got to be a bit of a jack of all trades, and still like jack of all trades, master of one type of thing. Or making sure that you can hang in a bunch of different environments.
Well, the nice thing about being a jack of all trades is that if you know you've got a certain type of gig coming up in a month's time, you can really put the most of the focus on that style or that technique to get that together, and you'll come quickly. But imagine if you were, excuse me, put in a position to play something completely you don't know about and it's anything about. That's really, really going to be nervous for you and trying.
Yeah, yeah. No, that might not end well. How much time do we have here? We still have about 10 minutes, I think. Okay, this is great. Al, I thought maybe you could talk a bit about that. Just I know it can be a challenge managing all that, the playing career and the teaching career. How have those things worked in tandem? Because I also consider you such a master educator, and I really respect that about that you found a way to sound like you sound and sounded so great all the time, but also you really know how to teach. I just wonder, was that ever like a challenge to kind of keep all those balls in the air?
Well, I guess what you do is when you're first teaching, this goes for anybody, when you first start teaching, you're learning from your students. And, if they have a problem with their sound, what you have to do is try to almost recreate their sound with your playing to see why it sounds that way. So you learn about, throat closing up or sometimes their tongue is too high in their mouths, for the sound, and sometimes
Right.
they're pushing too hard in the mouthpiece. So over the years, you just learn. Like I can diagnose pretty well every brass player I've ever had as a student because I've heard it all, I've experienced it all, just to sort of get that idea of how to fix it. And so one of the things I'd like to suggest too is that in Calgary or any place around the world, there's always going to be some great trombone players in town somewhere, whether it's with the orchestra or a jazz player. And don't be afraid to go take a lesson. Number one,
Yeah.
if you get lots of different ideas, it might be a completely different idea than you've been taught before. But you know what? You get something from everybody. And also, if you play for your teachers, you're going to be eventually get known. I mean, Karsten, you played for me all the time. It'd be, easy for me to send you into a certain type of gig, because I know how you play.
Right.
Yeah,
I think that's something that I think now I should probably, I've talked to Jim and Dave here in town. Well, sometimes I just want to come take a lesson and get some that extra schooling that life's for learning, and this thing is a lifelong pursuit too. So I think that's a great point. Keep
and also as you teach many students, eventually they hire you, like you did, Karsten.
That's right.
When was that? 2 years ago, or
That was 2 years ago.
2 years ago.
I you know what? Actually, it's funny because, well, for those of you watching, I had the unfortunate reality of double booking myself, and I knew that I had to bail on a gig of a friend of mine, and it needed to be somebody really damn good. So Al was kind enough to be willing to fly out here, play this gig, and actually, my mom bought tickets thinking I was going to be on the show. I listened the other day. She showed me because she went to your gig instead of mine and recorded it. We were listening to it a couple weeks ago, and
Oh yeah,
boy, that sounded great. That was
fun.
yeah, it was a good band. Hey, well,
Mhm.
we'll have to. We know we're going to get you back out here when we can. So
Yeah, good.
Hey, couple questions more. I think this is kind of maybe an important one for me too. Is how have you seen the music business change over the years? I mean, that's a pretty wide open question, and we could probably talk about that for a long time. But that kind of idea, how you've seen things change, and then maybe what advice you'd have for younger players that are starting out now.
Well, you know what? We've just gone through really a couple years of very trying times for any live music.
Yeah.
But you know what? When you look on the internet, you see people putting bands together virtually, people still writing music, people still putting stuff up there. even if it's with a recorded track or something, but that creativity is something you need, I think, as a musician. And it's like Carson, and with the Foothills Brass, if times are tough and there's no gigs, I mean, you got to think of other things to do to keep working and keep involved. And you just can't sit by the phone or sit by the computer waiting for that email to hire you.
No, yeah, and that was another thing that you really imparted upon me, was that idea of, kind of making the transition from being a student to professional. That you need to be ready to get off your butt, write some music, get some arrangements together, get a band, and go be proactive towards it, as opposed to sitting back and hoping the phone rings, right?
You compare when I grew up to what's happening now for most musicians. I mean, it's not the same amount of gigs, but
no,
you can't be thinking, oh, in the past, trombone players would be working all the time, etc. Or there was 18 big bands in town. That's not the reality. But you can't have a reality based on the past. You have to have a reality based on now. And there's still some successful young musicians out there playing and doing stuff. And once pandemic is over a bit, hopefully we'll all be back at it again. Take risks, talk to some of the local big bands in town, for instance, and say, listen, I've been writing some great charts. Would you be interested to play them? Can I come out? And also, even just like if you're a classical musician that says to a church you belong to or something, listen, I'd love to do a recital in 3 months with me and the organ or me and a piano as part of the service, or like or something. You don't even have to be religious, to make that happen,
right?
To push yourself to make that jump, and could be scary, but you know what? You got to have as much experience playing it as you can.
Yes, yeah, and the more that happens early on, I know that's no, I just think about that sometimes, because even in the 20 years, hey, almost 20 years since I came to you at Humber. But things have changed an awful lot in the music business, in the ways of making money in playing. And I still think the single biggest thing is be ready to, stick your neck out, go for it, and hustle and create some work yourself.
And you know what? I've had over the years, many Humber students in the brass department come to me in the first class almost we have, says, well, how much money are we going to make?
Right.
And you don't really have an answer, I mean, it could be a really fine player, but you don't know if they're going to make $50 a year or $50,000 a year. Depends on them. It could be their personality stops them from getting gigs, It could be a great player. But I think what you got to think about is it's not necessarily a career choice. It would be great to get in an orchestra, but there's not that many orchestra openings, to make that happen. But if you want to become an artist, doesn't matter if you're in music or painting or whatever, you're in it because this is what you love. This is your passion. And if you can be making like $500 a year or a month or something, you should be happy. And you maybe have to work in a store somewhere to pay your rent and stuff, but you're still considering yourself a musician first or an artist first. And instead of giving up, you say, well, this is the reality nowadays. I can still do some gigs. I can still get that part of my creativity out there. Maybe it'll lead to something new. Maybe somebody will hear me and hire me for a particular gig that will make my career blossom a bit,
Yeah. I mean, I hear you. It's almost like we have to be doing this, I mean, we got the bug. Isn't that great? Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. Hey, I was thinking maybe one thing we could just leave it if I could ask, you've taught so many students, you've seen so many young musicians come through the doors of Humber. If you wouldn't mind kind of sharing as a last thought some of the things that you've taught that you've really seen have a big effect on students. I know for me, you know, with the trombone side of things, we've talked a lot about fundamentals, but also just you taught a lot of non-trombonists at Humber too. And I'm just wondering if you've seen certain things really stick and work for a bunch of students. Kind of an odd question, but you know, what are the things that have worked the best over your time as a teacher, do you think?
Well, you know, one of the Pete Sullivan was talking about it earlier as well, but you know, the air, relaxed air and all that stuff. And, you know, I always tell the story at clinics over the years is that one of my biggest discoveries was I went camping with my wife for 5.5 weeks. We went from Toronto, drove all the way to Vancouver Island, up through the Cassiar Highway, up to the Yukon and back. It was 5.5 weeks. And my job every night was to blow up the air mattresses for the tent. And I didn't take my trombone, but every night I was going. And it originally took about 25 blows to blow each one up. By the end of the 5.5 weeks, I was doing it in 17 blows to fill this thing up. Didn't touch my trombone. But when I got back to Toronto, I had a gig about 2 days later after I got back, and I was a little bit worried.
Right.
First, I picked up my trombone, and it was the easiest playing I've ever done because developing your abdominals to, there's no tension, like there's no sort of performance pressure, right? So
Sure.
there's all this relaxed breathing and efficiency and all these things. So I've actually had many students over the years trying this. We had a lead trumpet player in the big band at Humber. He was struggling a bit with his sound and his air. He did this religiously every single day. Within 3 weeks, everybody was turning around saying, yeah, man, whoa. It made such a huge difference to his playing, right? So these are things like simple things that sound like they're a little wacky, but you know what? It's absolutely the thing to do for everybody. It doesn't matter what style of playing you're doing. Just
Yes.
getting it that relaxed and getting that efficiency, using 100% of your lungs to blow up this air mattress, which you're tired of blowing up, you know, but you're getting better and better and better. But anyway, go to Canadian Tire tomorrow. Get yourself some air mattress, and give me $100 for the lesson.
That's great. And I was gonna say, if you want to join me on the next camping trip, that would be great.
Yeah.
I think we have to leave it there. Al, I just want to say, you know, personally, thank you for a 20-year friendship now. All that you've given me personally as a trombonist, as a musician, as an artist. And thanks so much for being willing to be here today and share your beautiful career and some heartfelt stories. And it's great. It's great to see you, man. We can't wait the next time you get out here.
Absolutely. This has been a pleasure for me too. And, you know, it's been a year of not doing that much. And, you know, so this has been great to relay some stories and advice and to everybody out there who's listening today. So thank you, Nathan and Karsten, for inviting me here, and to Yamaha, by the way.
Yes.
Who I developed this horn with Yamaha. So
yes,
you know,
the 697Z. You know what? That was something I had written that down, and there's just too much stuff to talk about.
Yeah.
But I know thank you very much to Yamaha, and I know Nathan has set that up with the folks at Yamaha. So we certainly thank them. Keep that flame alive. I feel it's the same year for a lot of us, just trying to keep the hope going. So thank you, Al.
I had to keep my chops going because I got a big Cuphead video session coming up next month. They actually the big band section is delayed because of the COVID. You can't have that many people in the studio, but I'm going in a couple of weeks doing a bunch of solo stuff, which is wacky, high, loud, and super fast. Like quarter note equals 356. You know, that's what I got to play over. So
burning.
I'm trying to get some chops for that.
That's great. This is Cuphead 2, the second kind of installment of that video game.
Yeah, it was developed in Winnipeg, and the music is done in Canada as well, and with a live big band. It was a big world's bestseller for many years, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's huge. I know. I know there's a lot of people who love it, and well, good luck on that second set.
And thank you, Karsten and everybody. This has been a great, great experience, and looking forward to seeing the concert. It's also great to see all the guys from Calgary and Pete and all these. Pete and I played the Zeno trombone quartet, and we had some marvelous times and marvelous concerts with that too. So great to see you, man.
Let's
You
do
too,
more.
man. You too, buddy.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Guys. Thanks, everybody.
Yeah,
That was great, Al. That was fantastic, man.
Awesome. Okay.
All right, man, I hope you all felt as inspired as I have. What a great session. Thanks so much, Al, Karsten, just brilliance. And that also encourages me to get the air mattress out this summer when we're camping. Thanks so much. We got a couple more door prizes. We want to give Music Direct a big thank you. Don Clausen and Music Direct have put together a bag of Rubank trombone books. And let's see if we can pull from this hat here. And here we go. All right. Riku Takaheshi's got a bag of Rubank books. Awesome. We'll get those out to you. And we have one more digital metronome here from Long and McQuaid. And thank you to Matt Ferguson for sorting that out for us. And let me take a look here. And we have Greg Burns. So we'll be in touch with him as well. Awesome. So we're so grateful that you've been part of this International Trombone Week and Slide into Spring. And it really wouldn't help work without your help and support and the efforts of so many. So that includes this concert. The concert you're about to see, you're going to enjoy performances of Bone Week Fanfare No. 2 by Brad Edwards, performed by the Calgary Trombone Consort. And then you're going to be seeing a stream of a premiere virtual trombone ensemble. So this is going to be our own Slide into Spring mass virtual trombone choir playing Song for Health by Stephen Verheist. This piece was written in 2020 for the frontline workers who have given so much to all of us during this pandemic. There are also contributions from a number of community trombone ensembles, and the piece and its info will appear on the screen. We'd also like to give a special welcome to Crossbones Trombone Collective, who are a professional trombone ensemble from Belgium, and they'll be performing 3 pieces in this virtual concert. You can look them up at crossbonestrombones.com. We hope to meet them in person soon. Thanks so much, everyone, for your contributions. This has been just an amazing, amazing day. So finishing up the concert, we'll hear a piece called Justice Fanfare, which is a musical piece to unite people in a good cause. The commission around this piece was to begin a project around the question, what can we as musicians do to change the world? We hope you enjoy the concert, stay well in these difficult times, and continue to reach out, connecting in these times of distance. I want to lastly say thanks again to everyone who made Slide into Spring possible this year. Special thanks to Christine Steller for her logo design each year, and to Matthew James, who's helped out behind the scenes, both in preparation for today and right now too, as we navigate through these virtual performances. We're grateful to all of you and look forward to meeting in person as soon as it's safe. Thanks so much. Enjoy the concert. Bye.
Thank you.